Pastel de Nata. The world seems to have finally caught up with this delight from Portugal. But how has this delicacy from a little country at the corner of Europe made its way to so many pastry shops and supermarkets beyond its borders? Well, if you've had a pastel de nata before, then you most likely know the answer. But if you haven't, you're missing out on something magical. In this little video of mine, I'll show you how I make pastéis de nata at my house. You'll see that it's much easier than it may seem, and I promise that the end result is delicious. Let's start with the pastry. Add 350 grams of flour to a bowl, and then add 200 milliliters of water and mix well. Don't be like me and don't forget the salt. This is what I'm doing right here. Keep on mixing until all the ingredients are reasonably combined, then transfer the dough to a stand. Now don't worry, you won't have to knead like there's no tomorrow. You just have to make sure that the dough is very well combined. This process took me around 5 minutes, and I knew it was time to stop when the dough stopped sticking to the stand and it didn't have that grainy look anymore. I have to say that if you want, you can use a store-bought puff pastry, but in my humble opinion, the result is much better if you use this recipe. Shape the dough into a ball, then cover it with cling film and let it rest for 10 minutes. After 10 minutes have passed, you can remove the cling film, and now your goal is to stretch the dough using a kitchen roll. Beyond stretching this dough, what you want to get out of it are 4 wings, and you will see in a few seconds what I mean by that. This will facilitate the incorporation of the butter in the dough, so I strongly recommend that you stretch it as I'm showing. This recipe takes 250 grams of butter, and the butter should be cold. The butter is essential to create the flakiness of the dough, and what I'm showing here is me flattening and softening it a little bit. It's important that we use the butter while it's still cold, because throughout the layering process, with the friction and the heat from our hands, it's gonna soften, but it's important that it doesn't melt. The wings that I mentioned earlier are important to create this pocket where the butter will be placed at. Now that the butter is in, we're gonna stretch this pastry 3 times. This is round 1. I do recommend extra care when rolling this dough because you don't want to expose the butter. You should aim to get somewhat of a rectangle out of this process. Once the pastry is rolled, fold it 3 times. This outer end should guide you on the direction to roll the next time around. Once again, cover with cling film and let it rest for 10 minutes. After the 10 minutes, you can remove the cling film and feel free to add some flour to the stand. And right here, I'm stretching in the same direction as the outer end that I created in the first round of stretching. I really hope this makes sense. Once again, fold it 3 times and cover with cling film and let it rest for another 10 minutes. After which you will roll again in the direction of the outer end, and this is the final time you're going to stretch this pastry. Once you've stretched it as thinly as possible without breaking the dough, you then have to roll it as carefully as possible, cover it with cling film, roll it, and place it in the fridge either overnight or at least for 2 hours. Now moving on to the custard filling. It takes 30 grams of flour and 400 milliliters of milk. Add a little bit of the milk to the flour, say around 50 or 60 milliliters, to help it turn it into a paste. This filling also takes 4 egg yolks. And by now you should know that we don't like waste in this channel, so you can use the egg whites to do an egg white omelette, for example. Give the yolks a little stir and reserve. To a pan, add 100 milliliters of water, some lemon peel, a cinnamon stick, and 200 grams of sugar. To another pan, add the remainder of the 400 milliliters of milk and take both to a boil. You should let the sugar boil for 3 minutes and you don't have to stir it. Once the milk boils, you should add it to the flour paste while mixing it continuously. Then add the sugar syrup while mixing it. Don't worry about the cinnamon and the lemon peel. You're gonna use a sieve afterwards to remove these bits. Keep mixing it, and as a final step, you will add egg yolks. After the yolks are in, keep on stirring until this mix cools down. Then strain it to remove the solid bits and let it cool down completely. You will notice that this mix will thicken a little bit as it cools down. These are the tins that I'm gonna use to make my pastéis de nata. It's the next day, so I've taken the dough out of the fridge and proceeded to cut it into 12 or so equal pieces. Each disc is placed at the tin, and then with my thumb I flatten it, and then I proceed to walk around with my thumbs mainly to flatten the sides of the dough around the surface of the tin. I then covered a baking tray with parchment paper where I placed the tins with the pastry, and then on top of it I added the custard to about 3/4 of the height of the tin. It's important to mention that the pastéis de nata should be baked at a preheated oven at the highest possible temperature for the shortest amount of time possible. Also, you should bake it at the bottom level of your oven. Mine baked for 10 minutes at 300 degrees Celsius, and then I put it a little bit more just with the top grill on to get this charred result. I really do hope you try this recipe at your house, and I'm sure you're gonna love it. But please do comment below in case anything is not clear. I'm more than willing to clarify. Thank you for watching. I'll see you here next time. Bye!